Hello, welcome back inside the Parc Fermé podcast number 841.
No, Todd, not now!
Yes, it is Todd, aka Negative Camber, and you know what we do on race weekends, and you know who we do it with. Of course you do. You know what we do.
We watch one, then we talk about it. Then we watch one, then we talk about it. Come on, Todd.
That's exactly what we do, but before doing that, I have to bring in my co-host, which means...
Wrecked from out of the wasteland. He's bad, he's beautiful, he's crazy. It's...
Hello, everybody. This is Paul Charles, the
It's
International.
Paul. How you doing, Paul?
I'm good. I'm
Good.
getting a little tired. I've
I
been
know. You've been on a
rocketing around the
grind.
world at this point, race after race. I mean,
I
it's
know.
a tough old life for Paul Charlesley.
All
But,
that
yeah,
all that time and partying in the Walloon Valley of Belgium, and then
yeah,
you know
so, yeah.
plane
Pate
back,
and wine, and
yeah, and then
yes.
back to VIR
Oh, how
this
we
weekend.
danced. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
how we danced.
yeah. So yeah, basically back for a day, wash my underwear, jump on another plane, and head to VAR for SRO land. Now I'm back home. I got 2 days to wash my underwear, so I can take a bit more time. Got to be careful with that,
Yeah,
obviously.
you do.
And then we're off to Watkins Glen for the IMSA race this weekend. So
That's gonna be exciting. So 6 hours of the Glen.
yes, last year we came first and first. It
Awesome.
was first time
Yeah.
anyone had done that. So we're looking for a repeat of
A
the
repeat.
double win. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
23, number 23 and number 27 will be in action, and the drivers are Paul.
In 27 is going to be Ian,
Yep.
and it's going to be a Roman and Marco Sorensen. And in the 23 car, it's going to be Ross Gunn and Alex Rivera. So our regular lineup, we're just adding Ian in
Gotcha.
the 27 car for the 6 hour. He does. the
You're
longer
adding that
races.
sage wisdom hot shoe from Phoenix, aren't you?
Yes, he's hot off the track from Le Mans. He did an awesome job in his stints
Yeah.
at Le Mans. So
He did that
hopefully he
late
can
night
bring.
stint too, didn't he?
Oh yeah, no, he did.
Yeah.
I mean, all the drivers did great. It was a very
Yeah.
tricky race, but yeah, he did a tremendous job. So hopefully bring some of that momentum to the Glen as
Yeah.
well.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's good. Well, there you go, folks. There's your weekend racing sorted right there. Watkins
That's
Glen,
right.
6
Yep.
hours, hard of racing Aston Martin team. Should be good.
Yeah.
Paul, somehow in your hectic schedule, as you Brits might say,
Yes,
you managed to squeeze in the Canadian Grand Prix, no?
I did. Yes, at the airport, but yes, I did.
At the airport. You know, I was at a trade show all last week
Fun.
and standing for 3 days straight in a manufacturer's booth who I work for, pitching all kinds of stuff and gripping and grinning and meeting
Yeah.
people.
Did you have one of those flip signs to attract attention? You know, like they do for the sandwich
Yeah.
shops.
They had me in
Yeah.
a big koala suit, and I was in the aisle, walking around a big koala suit.
Hey, folks, check out my screens. Yeah.
You ever thought of the benefits owning a really nice direct view LED system? Let me show you. Yeah, it was pretty crazy. It's
Yeah.
the one upside, it's Infocom, which is I'm in the AV technology business, and it's great to see all my friends and colleagues from Belgium, and it's always great. But boy, it is a grind.
Yep. This
It is
is
a grind.
grind.
It's not quite like staying up 24 hours and the whole lead up to staying up for 24 hours
No.
and willing a car to P6 in class for your very first Le Mans. But I like to tell people it's similar to that.
Yeah, just a
I said,
slightly
well, what?
a little left of that. Yeah. yeah,
I
what?
do what Paul does, just in a different industry. Yeah.
We just don't get to visit the hotel bar afterwards.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But it's working for a manufacturer. When you get done with the show, you've been on,
Yes. Oh
all
yeah.
day long, and I love interacting and I love all that. But I'm by nature I'm an introvert, so it literally sucks the life out of me, right? So
Yeah.
when you get done, you just want to go back to the hotel and say, "Oh," put the dogs up and
Yeah.
and
But you
no.
still have to be on usually. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you got to go to dinners with consultants and you got to
Yeah.
go to dinners with partners and you got to still
Oh,
be
man.
on. It's woe is me, Paul.
Yes.
Not like
it's-
having a differential radiator blow out and you're running a hot diff all weekend, and
That's right.
trying
Slide
to
that rear
survive.
end around. That's a little tough
Yeah.
also. Yeah.
That's kind of tough too.
Yeah. The girls got that this weekend, unfortunately. But
Yeah.
they trooped through it.
They did.
Yes,
They're
they
troopers.
did. They are.
Well, let's talk about the Canadian Grand Prix, shall we? Because I had some wrong dates that you very delicately corrected me on. Thank you. I was,
Hmm.
I was in a haze.
Something.
Yeah, I was. I just got all excited about the Canadian Grand Prix because, quite honestly, it's been on the F1 calendar for nearly 60 years, folks. And the current circuit since 1978, as Paul reminded me.
Hmm.
It was a man-made island built in 1965, which is exciting for the World Fair, right, Paul?
Yeah, World's Fair. Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
it was built originally, and then they kind of adapted that into the track. Yeah.
After the World's Fair, they thought, what the hell are we going to do with this? Very much like Russia in the Olympics. So what the hell are we going to do with this?
Yeah.
Well, let's put an F1 race. Yeah, so they did
Right.
it. Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, named after the legendary Canadian driver. And it's an old school track. That's what I like about it.
Hmm.
It's very hard on brakes. I still remember. Oh, this is dipping back a bit. Do you remember when Heinz-Harald Frentzen drove for Jordan, and he was doing exceptionally well? He was running third or fourth or something like that. He was coming down that long final straight before
Yeah.
the wall of champion chicane,
Hmm.
and just bam, his brake just exploded in his
Oh,
wheel. Yeah,
yeah.
it was just
Yeah, I think I do remember that now.
yeah,
Yeah.
so hard on brakes there.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, very interesting weather can occur there as
Yes, it
well,
is. Yes,
and that's a
yes.
challenge.
Yeah. My biggest memory of that track is seeing Elise's only ever Formula One win in a
Yeah, yeah,
Ferrari
yeah.
in changeable conditions, from what I remember.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
And
and then not
yeah.
too long ago, you had Seb leading and blew it, and Jensen Button that
Oh, yeah.
horribly, what is it, like 8 hour
Yeah.
long race? But yeah,
Yeah.
that
But the
was
one thing we have against the Canadian Grand Prix is HD tires.
yes, yeah,
Mm,
yes, we do.
I blame
Yes,
Canada for that one.
yeah. I remember there was a marshal killed after the race when they had a big JCB backing in to retract a car at
Oh,
turn
yeah, that's right.
two and ran
Turn
over a
two, yeah.
marshal. It was
Getting Massa's
terrible.
car, as far as I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
There's
terrible.
been a lot of things
Just
happen
terrible.
here. It's
It
it's it's
has.
a it's a it looks like a pretty ordinary track
Yeah,
if you look at the map and everything, but every driver loves driving it, and being there. The event's obviously big, but
yeah,
the track itself has a very unique um, challenge to it.
yeah,
So I was talking to Roman, who's Canadian, who drives for our team, and he's raced that track 5 times, and it's like one of his favorite tracks he's ever driven.
yeah,
Even though it's long straights and chicanes, and a
yeah.
couple of turnbacks, it just has this little a flow to it and challenge to it, top speed, hard braking, flicking the car through the chicane that every driver seems to enjoy.
Yeah, I remember Kubic's crash with
Yeah, that
Williams
was
down at the
brutal.
hairpin, right?
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah, a lot of
brutal.
stuff happened here. Yeah.
Yeah, there really has been a lot of stuff, but there was changing conditions all weekend. Really, rain, cold on Friday and Saturday led to a very eventful qualifying session.
Hmm.
And we'll dip into that where it's appropriate during the review, but it was interesting. Of the top 10 finishers, 6 drivers stopped twice, with only 4 making just a one stopper.
Hmm.
And to be fair, Perez's stop was really just to go for fast lap. Otherwise, he wouldn't have.
Right.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, and the whole thing is nestled, on that island, but surrounded by a city that truly loves Formula One, and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
it's always an enigma. And even when we didn't have a race over here before Coda, it was kind of like, how can Canada have their crap together and love Formula One, and not one place in America can seem to remotely be bothered?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
But it's nearly 60 years the Canadians have embraced, enthusiastically embraced that race, and we build a race in a parking lot. So there you go.
Yeah. There you go.
There you have it. All right. Well, let's talk about the race, how they finished. We're going to start off at the very sharpest end of the grid for the win. Red Bull, you had Sergio Perez down in P6, Max Verstappen P1. Max enjoyed his 6th win of the season, 4th in a row. And it's his 41st overall win, equaling Ayrton Senna's record, and also gave Red Bull a milestone victory. This was Red Bull's 100th win from 355 Grand Prix starts. Its first win dates back to April 2009 when Sebastian Vettel won the Chinese Grand Prix. Red
Hmm.
Bull is the 5th team to have reached 100 wins in a category headed by Ferrari with 242 wins, followed by McLaren with 183 wins.
Well, those two teams not likely to win anytime
Ever.
soon.
It's just killing me. And Mercedes 125, most of those racked up in the previous 8 years of domination. And Williams at 114. Yes, I said Williams. Can you believe that? Yes.
Also unlikely not to win anytime soon.
Right. So you got, so it's such a storied history when you look at that Ferrari, McLaren, Williams. You know, these were the stalwarts of Formula One for so long. My, how things have changed.
No, it seems so long ago, yet not that far ago, when Williams were just the team that no one could touch. And a lot of people, obviously, because it was that long ago, never even saw that, and they're like, Williams, I don't know, they're just an average team, right? But no, they just had dominance. They had revolutionary cars.
They did.
Just astounding stuff that Williams did in their era. And,
active ride height. That's when Newey was there. Right?
Yeah.
It's incredible. So anyway, Max finished 9.5 seconds ahead of Alonso, and while the moaning continues about the dominance of this, it's so boring, Max wins everything, I do think there are a couple things to consider. One, Sergio is in the same car as Max.
Yeah.
Hello.
you think.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So keep that in mind when you say, oh, well, hell, a trained monkey could drive that car. It's the same thing when people would say that about Lewis and the Mercedes. Clearly a comprehensively dominant car for 8 years. But, you know, Valtteri was in that same car. You know, and Sergio was in that same car. That's one to keep in mind. Number two is Max is driving incredibly well, much like Vettel did, and Lewis did, and others where the car and driver were one. Part of the reason the best driver ends up in that best car is the team has the cash to afford the best driver. But when you couple those two things, like Lewis and Mercedes, Max Red Bull, Schumacher Ferrari, Alonso Renault at the time, you know, magic things happen. And they are happening right now. And I say good on him. And this is coming from a Ferrari fan. So it doesn't bother me seeing Max win everything. It's, you know, it just challenges everyone else to raise their game. So there's that. And the other thing, now I'm not making any bold claims here, but, you know, this very well could have just been track specific as to why Max didn't finish 30 seconds down the road like he has been. And it could, I say could, suggest that the Aston Martin and Mercedes upgrades might be working a little, right? Yeah. You could also argue, Paul, that Max just manages pace, and had they been more of a threat, he just turned it up a little bit and pulled out. So he had plenty of pace in hand and finished 10 seconds ahead, and that was fine. That's all he needed to do. You know, if pressed, I'd say the Aston Mercedes are still 2-3 tenths off a lap, which in Formula One terms is a lot.
Not winning,
right? But if you're the optimist in the crowd, maybe this race, track specific, maybe didn't really flatter the Red Bull as much, and maybe, just maybe, Aston and Mercedes have clawed back a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of all of that put together. I for sure think that Aston and Mercedes are clawing their way back. Obviously, Red Bull started with a whole head of steam and a whole big pile of time over everybody else, and as things evolutionize themselves, is that a word? The other teams learn from what the other teams are doing, and everything gets a little bit closer and closer. And obviously, we see radical changes with the Mercedes. Not so radical with the Aston, but the Aston's been the closest competition to the Red Bull anyway. Right. What we would have thought would be that the Red Bull, with its straight line speed performance, this track actually would be a great one, because it's not as reliable on super good downforce and handling. It's straight line braking, straight line acceleration, a lot of that stuff here. So I think it was a positive sign. I think there's always a point to Max backing off a little bit, but he also sure does like to lay it on thick against the competition when he has half a chance,
Yeah.
even if the team are squawking against it. But this track it's a little bit sensitive on brakes, so you can't just go out there and push as hard as you want to all the time, else you put yourself in trouble too. So yeah, I think the other teams are a little bit closer, a little bit track specific. It's really hard for me to tell there. I think on paper this should have been a good Red Bull track too, but maybe there's something I'm missing. But
Yeah.
I think it all bodes well. I think Alonso's confidence certainly will tell you that he feels like he's going to have a better crack at it from here on out.
Yeah. Yeah. That's for sure. For Sergio, this is 3 races now where he didn't advance into Q1. That's pretty
Yeah,
brutal.
that is
Um,
brutal. I mean, you can say one race here or there, but a
yeah.
consistent run is a pattern, isn't it? Not
Yeah, it's
good.
starting to be that. Qualifying is very
Hmm.
difficult for him. His inability to scythe his way back through the field on a recovery drive on Sunday, though,
Right.
that was down to a loss of grip on the mediums, according to him. And
Mm.
at first, I considered that this pace also suggested that the track or the competition had impacted the overall Red Bull pace, but it's hard to know because Sergio has just been off of his game of late, and
Yeah.
that to me is more concerning right now, with respects to, oh gosh, has Aston, closed the gap a little bit. I think from a point standpoint, Sergio being, you know, out in Q2 is a major issue. I also wonder if any of the recent upgrades that they brought to the Red Bull have moved that car away from his comfort zone in
Mm.
regards to driving style. I don't know. I'm just grasping at straws here, folks, because I don't have an explanation of why Sergio's kind of in the slump that he is, but
Yeah.
it's not helping his cause or Red Bull's.
No, for sure. I mean, I think that they're pretty comfortable in where they're going, so I don't know how much they're really developing the car right now. They've got a pretty handy
Yeah,
package
right.
over everybody else. So I don't think they're going to turn a car upside down and chase
No.
and change the characteristic of the car. That's just a dangerous place to go for no good reason. But we talked about it before about the second driver. Sometimes even Bottas, Rosberg, whoever you're talking about, they even Berger sometimes at Senna and etc.
Yeah.
They have their moments, but it's the consistency
Mm,
week after week to be that fast is what gradually separates the good
hmm.
person, the best from the rest. And we always, oh my God, what is it a disaster that Sergio was faster than Max in a session? Well, no, it's not, because eventually it's all going to work its way out, and you'll see the class and speed of Max Verstappen separate himself from his teammate, and that's exactly what's happening. It is a surprise that Sergio's struggling so hard, and there've been a couple of weird weekends for sure, but the
Hmm.
big thing is what you talked about is him not being able to claw his way back in. Even if he has a bad qualifying, if Max started at the back of the pack, everyone's fully expecting him to be on the podium.
Yeah, for sure.
He's in the best car on the grid, and Sergio just wasn't able to fulfill that, even though he was, not that far back. And what was he in sixth place in the
Yeah.
race, like before halfway? That he should have done more with it than that.
Yeah, agreed. I really expected him to get back up towards the podium. He
Hmm.
should have been harassing Hamilton and Alonso
Yep, absolutely.
for sure.
Yep.
Especially with George out, really no reason he wouldn't have been
No.
there. But that's yeah, very very difficult. Yeah, be interesting to see if he can turn it around in Austria at their home race.
Right.
Speaking of Aston Martin, let's talk about that Aston Martin Lance Stroll P9, Fernando Alonso
Woohoo!
P2. Fernando lost a place at the start, but he regained it by passing Lewis to take second place. You also talk about consistency. Here's another guy delivering consistency.
Hmm.
You think of Lewis, Max, Fernando, Vettel in his day. Yeah, that consistency is brutal. Does Lewis have an occasional error or issue? Yes, but they're very few and far between. Same for Fernando and Max. They
Hmm.
just don't happen anymore. And I would say evolutionary tracked. I think Max has been more impressive from where he came from to where he is now. I don't think
Hmm.
Lewis had incidents, knocked wings off, banged wheels at people, as all young rookies do, and as they come up through the ranks. And Fernando had a few too. But Max was considered a first lap nutter. I mean, he was all over the place, right?
Mm,
How he's managed to calm all of that down to execute now is in that consistency.
yeah. Well, his tactics were questioned equally amount, I think,
Yeah, they were.
The
Yeah.
whole work moving the braking zone and everything like that. Now he's,
Aggressive. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
But Lonzo shows you can be aggressive. He's also aggressive. Unfortunately for him, he was nursing a fuel system issue. I've read a lot of reports that it was brake, but I was reading the Kraken's comments,
Hmm.
and he said it was a fuel system issue according to him.
At least the fuel sensor issue. I think
Was
at
that
least that's what I read was they were getting bad signals, but in the end, the signal was
was a
bad
bad sensor?
rather than
Yeah.
what it was telling them. Yeah,
Yeah. Right.
they didn't want to
Uh,
take any risk. Yeah.
He kept Lewis at bay, though, for what he said was the team's most competitive performance all year long so far.
Hmm.
So it was a really good race for him. I thought it was interesting in the pen doing the interviews afterwards. Lewis jabbed him or something. They said Lewis got the jump at the start, and Alonso was being interviewed right next to Lewis, so Lewis kind of jabbed him, in good humor. He was kind of like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, it's age, slow reactions." Alonso looked at it, and the reporter said, "Did you hear that?" And he said, "Yeah, I heard it. I heard it." He goes, "Austria in 2 weeks," and then slapped him on the back. Of that was just good, good.
Nice.
Yeah,
That is awesome.
yeah, it was good.
Yeah, no,
It's
Alonso.
great to see those two
Phenomenal.
battle, you
Hmm.
know, because they're of that ilk. Max is more Lando, George Russell, Axel, but that's
Right.
that generation. But that Lewis Hamilton, Fernando generation is
And
great to see.
considering the bad blood the whole
Yeah,
relationship started in, it is pretty
yeah,
funny like that. I guess
yeah,
they're growing a little calmer in their old age, but yeah,
yeah, maybe.
it is fun because they've got every tool in the box, either one of them. So,
Yeah,
and they're using it to fight each other. So
yeah, they were.
I enjoy the fact that Lewis is now as a car to run with Alonso, but super impressed every weekend. I gush a little bit now with Alonso, but he's just doing such a great job.
He is.
And I think it was a shame that he had to do the lift and coast because I think he did have some pace in hand. I don't think he could have challenged Max. I think Max could have turned up another notch, but I think he would have certainly given it a go the whole time. So it probably was frustrating, but in the end, it is better to get second than zero, as they said, and
Yeah,
he's still gonna have other chances. He really
yeah.
is.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to watch he and Lewis
Hmm.
go hammer and tongs, and Fernando was pretty magnanimous about it too, because he said when he was lifting coasting, Lewis was coming, and he
Yeah,
goes, and the last guy you want to see in your rearview mirror coming on strong is Lewis Hamilton. So, very polite about it.
let
But
me take
anyway,
care of this to
yeah,
the team. Yeah,
yeah,
I will take
leave
care
it
of it.
with me. Yeah. Lance stopped before the safety car came out, and this dropped him backwards. He did have an early stop again for clean air, and this helped him claw back into the points, um, which is good. A little surprised, maybe a little bit with Lance,
Hmm.
because in qualifying, because I've just seen several times in his career he's tends to be very good in these changing conditions, but this weekend he just seemed a bit off.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a bit off, quite honestly, most of the season, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, we talked about going into the season, how was Alonso going to work within the team? Well, Alonso's raised this team and give it so much success.
yeah.
It doesn't really matter what Lance is doing at this point. He doesn't have to run that politic anymore, really,
Right,
right?
right.
Because he's just winning, and the team are like, "Well, do whatever he says, wherever he says." I mean, we thought there'd be a bit to and fro, but Lance is kind of doing a Sergio right now and not making the most of the car that he has underneath him. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's very disappointing um, for him and the team because else they would probably be in a very safe second place in the manufacturer championship. But because the team's not
yeah.
getting that backup, that's not really happening.
It's going to be a problem. And I know
Yeah.
Lawrence, came out with a robust defense of his son, as you would. And I can appreciate that for
Hmm.
all the right reasons. But at the end of the day, you run now a very real risk of losing second in the championship to Mercedes because George unlike this weekend, George is delivering points, as is Lewis,
Mm-hmm.
and there is consistency there. And with, Lance constantly behind both of them, it's going to be tough.
It is.
It'd be
Not that
tough to
they would,
consolidate.
make a change, but it definitely, I know Lawrence is obviously, the big man on the team, but it's not like you don't have to adhere to your sponsors and the corporation and everything like
Yeah.
that in
Well, and to
competitiveness,
your employees, to be honest with you, who are working their
Mhm.
tails off
Right?
to provide a two very competitive cars, only to see one trundle around nipping into the top 10, while the
Hmm.
other one's in second,
Yeah.
and that's a problem.
Yeah.
Very much was same for Sergio. All right, let's talk about Mercedes. Lewis Hamilton P3, George Russell at DNF. Lewis had a good start, jumped Fernando, running second early for the early part of the race, but Alonso got him back. Lewis had a very good weekend, in my mind, was putting
Hmm.
pressure on Alonso, who was nursing that fuel issue, but ultimately didn't have the pace to nab second from the Spaniard. The thing I agree with Lewis on is his post race comment when he must be really excited, talking about the upgrade kits and everything, and he didn't even talk about that. He said, no, this consistency is
Hmm.
key, right? And I agree with him that consistency for the team. The upgrades are working and getting more consistent performance and more points out of both of them at this point.
Yeah.
Yes, I understand George DNF'd, but that's sort of becoming more of a rare occurrence for George. So, yeah, and he's young, but I do think Lewis is right. That consistency right now could put Mercedes very much in the hunt for P2 and the Constructors' Championship.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Consistency means they're understanding the car.
Yeah.
It's not hot and cold. It's not all of a sudden which happened before when
Hmm.
we don't know why we're fast, we don't know why we're slow. So you come to every race with a good thick book of data that you can blend from. And yeah, the George mistake is what it is. He's rarely made a mistake since he's come into Formula One. So I think
Yeah.
um, he can be forgiven for that. It was a bad error for sure.
Yeah.
Um, but I think also that comes from Lewis turning it up just a little bit too,
Hmm.
and you know, forcing George to now, really, really, not that he wasn't trying before, but he's seeing the real Lewis Hamilton, the real seventh-time world champion. So I think, he's got to start doing a little bit more work off
Yeah.
out of the car to be ready. Yeah.
Yeah. Lewis has been pretty methodical this year. Hit the
Hmm.
ground. George looked good at the beginning of the year. Lewis is just methodical,
Hmm.
consistency. And that's the whole key to it. And I think you're right. I think George starts to see Lewis kind of fire on all cylinders, and he's a handful, right?
Yeah.
George had that unforced error, taking too much of that sausage curb at turn 9, clouded the wall. He limped back to the pits. This put him in the back. He changed it. I thought the car was done at that
Yeah.
point,
Well, you
but
would. Yeah.
yeah, he changed the tires and was actually looking really good for a recovery drive into the points, Paul.
Hmm.
And then unfortunately, they had to retire the brake with brake wear issues, which is unfortunate. He apologized to the team, knew he'd messed up, and said that was 12 points I left on the table, and it's just unacceptable.
Yeah, and it absolutely was. Yeah,
Yeah,
he really
yeah.
wasn't pressured. He could have just trundled around there and notched up
Hmm.
the points. So, yep, lesson learned from there, when to press, when not to press. Although, of course, Verstappen laughed at that curb, but George, unfortunately, it sent him into the ball. So,
Yeah, yeah,
think,
yeah,
think how much Verstappen was underneath his car. Oh, I nearly thwacked the car there. It's like, oh,
yeah.
okay. All right. Don't make everyone feel even worse.
Yeah, he goes over and chuckle. Yeah, guffaw, and then George hits it and puts him in the wall. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's talk about Ferrari.
No, it cannot be, Ricky.
I agree. Ricky may have gotten it right this weekend.
Hmm.
Not on
Yes, he did.
Saturday, but on Sunday, Ricky finally decolonized his head. No, I don't know, Ricky. I'm not blaming you. Ferrari had, well, you had Charles Leclerc in P4, Carlos Sainz P5. Ferrari had
Yeah.
all of its fans on tenterhooks when they chose not to box during the safety car. And while it was clear they chose track position over fresh tires. There was a collective gasp, well, at least for me anyway, as to
Yeah.
if they could make this strategy work. So, okay, a team not recently known for its stellar strategy decides to stay out when everyone else boxes for fresh tires, and they're not on hard compounds, they're on medium compounds. And I thought, oh my gosh.
Yeah, you see the strategist in the fetal
Oh,
position in the back. Please don't let it happen again.
oh my gosh. I thought, what is going on? Please don't do this. This is,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. Both were on medium compounds at this point, and the team are known for being really hard on their tires. That's their big Achilles heel.
Hmm.
So, that added to my anxiety because A, you didn't box, B, you're on mediums, and C, you have a tendency to chew up your tires, right?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking this is all going to mix together and make a beautiful dumpster fire. Oh man, but you'd be forgiven for thinking they would tumble down the order when they finally did stop, but they were able to pull off a one stopper and make it work. Charles
Hmm.
ran an amazing 39 laps on those mediums, Paul, did not chew them off the back of the car. They managed to consolidate that strategy for track position with a fourth and fifth, and it makes you wonder what might have been had they had a better qualifying session. They really cocked it
Hmm.
up in the qualifying. Not sure the continuous radio message about Carlos not threatening Charles was really needed, but fair enough. I
Yeah.
say let the fastest car win at this point, and
Yeah.
if that's silly, let him go. But anyway, yeah, were you as doubtful of that strategy as I was?
I was. I didn't know how it was going to work. It's like, man, you need to somehow gain at least 8 seconds on everybody before you even pit. And I just don't know how you're going to do that, but it worked out. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I guess with the weather, the green track, the temperature, the tires were a difficult thing to manage, and them being on that tire, I think, aided them quite a bit
Mm-hmm.
in getting some open space and getting some time down to put them in a good track position and with a good gap. So when they came in, they made the most of it. Yeah, it worked
Yeah.
out perfectly. But yeah, I'm not sure anyone would have bet any money on that strategy game working, but they got it right this time. So maybe there's
Yeah.
hope. Maybe they've analyzed things. When you make a strategy, you got to be confident with it. Hard to be confident when you make a lot of mistakes, mind you. But so it was a ballsy move, and it paid off. And I think
Yeah.
it really helped them that some other people followed them in that strategy. Right, there was
Yeah.
4 cars behind them, and I think that really helped them make hay while the sun shone.
Yeah.
If they were the only ones that hadn't done it, I'm not sure it would have worked quite so well. But
Yeah. Yeah. Circumstantial.
hmm
Let's talk about Williams. Hey, representing Paul.
yes,
PBR, right? How
right,
about that British
well
team?
done.
Alex Albon a P7, Logan Sargent a DNF. Way to go, Logan. Wasn't his fault. What an amazing result for Williams, Paul. This
Yeah.
all actually started with a perfectly timed switch to softs during Q2 in qualifying.
Hmm.
But Alex then managed to convert that incredible qualifying session, made it all the way to Q3, that top 10 starting position into a P7 for the race. An amazing job. Up front, let me get this out. Logan had to stop his car due to an oil leak, and this left Alex to do all of the heavy lifting and to do something special.
Hmm.
And he actually did. The upgrades that they brought are clearly working on the Williams. Now, this is sort of track specific. They were very fast, very slippery in the air, trimmed out. And Alex initially dropped out of the top 10, but his one stopper launched him back into the points where he held off a charging Esteban Ocon's Alpine to finish P7. And Ocon was
Yeah.
on fresher tires. Alex said that the track flattered their car, and I think there's a point to be made there. But despite that, he drove superbly, and the team have done a terrific job with what little resources they have. And then ultimately, also the safety car, let's be fair, benefited Alex, but he managed his tires and that one stopper incredibly well. Job well done by Alex.
Absolutely. I mean, no matter how the race went around, his defensive driving
Yeah.
in a DRS world was phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
He when you're in that position, you have to do everything perfectly. It's very easy. One little mistake and the whole train's going to go by you.
Yeah.
But he did it. He slowed down the right places, sped up in the right places, used his power, used the car's inherent top speed, slipperiness, to keep all those cars with DRS behind him. And yeah, phenomenal job, and intense. As I said, one little mistake and you're done for. So
Yeah.
for him to do that, and I really like what the team's doing.
I do
James Vowles
too.
has done a great job. He came in with not any lofty ideas, but they've overperformed so far under his helm. So I think, it's all positive, and Albon's, making a good name for himself. I don't know what
Yeah,
they
he
mean
is.
by Albon defense. I can't remember something radio call about Albon, typical Albon defense. But hey, if it's typical Albon defense, then maybe you should try and copy it, because it
Yeah.
does a hell of a job of getting some
It works, doesn't it?
results. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I love James Vowles, his openness about the team. He's very transparent about where they are. Um, I think that team picking up James is huge.
hmm
And so I think he has had a great big impact on that team. So good on them. I'm so happy for that team this weekend. Let's see. Let's talk about Alpine. You have Pierre Gasly, P12, Esteban Ocon, and P6, P8. Sorry. Pierre was balked in qualifying by Sainz, who seemed to be balking everybody in qualifying.
That was crazy, right?
Yeah, yeah,
What was he
really
thinking?
weird.
He looked like he was out to lunch there. They should
Yeah,
have been a bigger penalty than he got, quite honestly, for
I
what he was
agree.
doing there. Yeah.
At that point, I thought, well, you should just give Pierre Carlos's qualifying position,
Right,
screwed his
right.
race.
It's unacceptable
Yeah, it
for what he
really
did there.
was. That left Pierre a lot of work to do on Sunday. He started on softs. They were trying to throw anything at it, and they were
Right.
trying to get a launch. He did. He gained 2 positions to start, but he boxed early because the softs weren't the tires to be on. Lost
hmm
out during the safety car because those around him had that free stop, and this left him outside looking into the top 10. So not a great race, but, I'm having a hard time really taking a sledgehammer to Pierre because, I think
Right.
Carlos pretty much put paid to his race.
Sure did. Yeah, it said
Yeah.
I think the penalty should have been higher for Carlos for that. He was
Yeah.
literally in no man's land right at the beginning of where everyone was trying to get their lap in. So
Yeah. Yeah.
unacceptable.
Unacceptable. Yeah. I guess I've got a soundbite. Do I have a soundbite for now? Well, this is close enough.
Not good enough, damn it! Not good enough!
There you go.
Good enough.
Let's see. Esteban had a better race, but couldn't get past the Williams of Albon, who was quicker down the straights. And he even had to fend off Lando Norris, did Esteban, late in the race with an all-out drag race to the line to stay ahead of McLaren at the checkered flag
hmm
for P8, which was pretty fun. He did have a wobbly wing incident. What's up with the
Yeah,
wobbly wing?
I'm not sure. You would think I mean, I guess inherently it moves a little bit, but you would think the FIA would be taking a closer look at that. I know, obviously,
Well, the
we
team said
heard,
today, oh, it's totally safe.
yeah, but I don't know what effectiveness it has if it's moving around like that. It seemed like that would be a negative to
Yeah.
performance,
Well, you
maybe.
keep moving around like that, eventually the bolts will get all wallered out and fall off, but
Yeah, I don't know
and
how it's
it'll do it
connected
at
even.
speed.
Yeah, but I mean that's got to be some kind of turbulence is causing too. I
Right.
don't really understand the logic, but maybe that it's turbulence they want rather than
Maybe
turbulence
it
they don't
is.
want, you know?
Yeah, maybe it is. I don't know. It's well, to be fair, Ted Kravitz called it out at the very beginning when they were going to their formation lap.
Oh yeah.
And right when they came out, they opened the pits and they went out to grid up, and it came down. Its very first run went over a couple bumps, and Ted said, "Well, that rear wing was moving."
Yeah.
And that's even before they got to the grid and had the grid walk and all that. So there was something
Yeah.
off, which tells me they would have known that as it sat there on the grid.
They know it's there for a purpose, what
Yeah.
purpose it has, but if the wing's moving like that, is that a movable aerodynamic device?
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody needs to do a little deep dive on that one.
I didn't see if Gasly's was doing exactly the same
I
thing.
didn't either.
Yeah.
So interesting. Watch this
hmm
space.
Watch the
It's
space.
those little oddities that either should have been penalties or a black and white flag,
Yeah.
or there's something tricky going on. They sort of reveal themselves. So that's kind of how Formula
Yeah,
One.
and the FIA know about it. That's why they don't call him in.
Yeah, right,
Right?
right,
I mean,
right,
the FIA are told not to tell all the other teams why certain teams do things. So that's
right.
maybe why, even if they're called, oh, this week they'll fall off, the FIA is like, no, not really. They've just got a little trick on there that we
Yeah.
can't tell you about. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like was it last year where the Mercedes and they, in a race or two, all of a sudden somebody noticed on the onboards, wait a minute, did he just
Hmm.
pull the steering wheel back and push it forward? What is that?
Yeah.
It's like,
Right,
oh,
right.
yeah. So it's those little things like that. I'm not saying a wobbly wing is a benefit, but Paul's got a point, and it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Alfa Romeo, Valtteri Bottas, P10, Zhou Guanyu, P16. Valtteri ran a long first stint, and he, like Ferrari, stayed out during the safety car, putting him in the top 10. But unlike Ferrari, he did drop down the order when he finally did box for fresh tires. This left a lot of work to do, but he rose to the occasion, making up 4 spots and back into the points. So good on Valtteri. It was a good race for him.
It was. He was feisty the whole race.
Yeah, he was.
He wasn't just disappearing in the background there. So that was good. They've had very few chances to be fighting in a top 10 position this year. So I think he took the bull by the horns. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he did. Joe started at the back, so it was always going to be a tough race for him, but he managed to get back up to 16th. Joe said that after the safety cars, his mediums felt really good, but unfortunately the race the race just didn't play out for him.
yeah, it was already over by that point.
Yeah, pretty much. So that's the end of that. Let's see. Let's talk about
McLaren.
Yes, McLaren. We're going to talk about McLaren next. Lando Norris, such a bad sportsman. Such a bad sportsman.
Bad Sportsman of the Year award.
Isn't he? Oh, come on.
Nice
Get in
one.
Yeah,
Get in the corner, Lando.
I know. Well, he got P13, Oscar Piastri P11. It's unfortunate as both cars were noodling around in the points for a good portion of that race. But Norris got a penalty for being too slow behind the safety car. He was trying to give enough room between him and Oscar so they could stack their pit stops and not lose too much time. But for that, he slowed down the cars behind him. So they decided to give him a 5-second penalty. And boy, that made him mad.
Yeah, made Ted mad too.
Yeah, Ted was furious, wasn't he?
He was so angry.
Yeah, I felt
Don't
like
tell him it's bad sportsmanship. It was not. He was frothing at the mouth.
I know he's like the king's hand over there. He's just like furious, wasn't he? I
He
was
was
like,
losing it.
whoa,
What is with the FIA?
whoa, slow down on the
news
corner
this weekend, there,
pasties.
chap?
Yeah, something. I don't know what's going on there. Well, it was clearly on Lando's mind because, man, he desperately tried to claw out that 5 seconds on the field and consolidate his P9. Just unfortunately could not do it. Dropped back to P13 with the penalty. So not good for Lando.
Not good for Lando. It's a good little fight there. There's some desperation moves that paid off and didn't pay off. Some outside passes that were, some overshooting, but you can't say he wasn't trying to make up. He was trying. His desperately bad behavior, but
it's terribly unsportsmanlike behavior.
Didn't quite work out now. And Piastri, obviously, was just, Lando would have been better off letting Piastri go for it, rather than trying to fight that. But to maneuver that in that race with that big train going on maybe would be a bit difficult as well.
A bit tough. Well, Piastri was set for points, but Bottas was on a different strategy for first tires.
Right.
Quicker at the end and made the pass to take P10 from Oscar. So, yeah. Let's see. AlphaTauri, Nick DeVries P18, Yuki Tsunoda P14. Yuki tried to stop at the end of the first lap for hard compounds and tried to try and give him free air to regain some race time. That's why they stopped him early. Initially, it actually looked like it could be working, but he was stuck behind Magnussen, and then they converted it to a 2-stopper, but a slow stop sent him further back than they anticipated, and he was trying to play catch-up from there. Finishing P14, not a lot to talk about there with Eukster.
Nope.
Nick had a battle with Magnussen, but outbraked himself and took Kevin with him into the escape road, which left both of them to back up, put it in reverse, and put him at the back. Like Pierre, a poor qualifying.
Drive away in shame.
Yes, right. Yeah. And it was a poor qualifying, really started a difficult weekend for them anyway. But
Yeah, still not sure what's going to happen to DeVries. There's no magic moments there yet,
No.
and you're comparing yourself to Yuki, who's also not that magic.
Right.
So
Right.
I don't know what that team's going to do at this
I
point.
don't know. Boy, I guarantee you this isn't how Franz thought this year was going to go.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Considering certainly what their Red Bull counterparts have in
Yeah.
their hand, there's got to be a lot of bleed over that they're just not making any use of whatsoever.
Yeah. It's tough. And then finally, Haas F1. Nico Hülkenberg P15, Kevin Magnussen P17. Nico instantly started losing spots at the start, despite starting up in P5. So they boxed early, and then they boxed Kevin early too. And I thought, boy, that's really early for both of them if you run a split strategy, which lends itself as a clear indication that they were chewing the tires off the back of their car.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what they're doing. Gunther said that it was clear to the team that once they got behind other cars, the tire wear was, his words, immense, end quote. He said that the team know where to look and that they need to figure out quickly instead of trying to parade around on a one-lap effort, meaning qualifying.
I would agree that. It's like they lift us up and then they deeply disappoint us. They literally fight their way to the back of the pack as quickly as you could possibly imagine. So fundamentally a lot wrong with that team at this point, not the drivers.
It's been Gunther.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they need to make a radical change because they're just always doing this. So,
well, look at Williams and Vowles.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm.
So, you don't fire the whole team. But anyway.
Yeah. Needs an ideology change for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, you do, Eugene. Whatever you want to do. All right. Well, that's the teams, how they finished. Let's give out some awards. We tend to do that. The first award we like to give out on the podcast is Move of the Race.
Seriously, Todd?
Yes. Seriously. Who'd you have Move of the Race, Paul?
I'm giving it to the Ferrari team.
All right.
I mean, we can lambast them and give them donkeys left, right, and center most of the time with their strategy calls, but this one worked. It elevated the team into better points. Everything they did on the wall ended up correct. So, if we're going to lambast them when they get it wrong, we should applaud them.
Yes.
If they do get it right and think outside the box a little bit.
Yeah. Yes. Well done, Ferrari.
Yeah, maybe they were elevated from the Le Mans win. Maybe they brought some fresh faces to the pit lane.
That's what I said. Maybe after they won Le Mans, I said, could you please have the strategy people from the Le Mans team go over to help the F1 guys out a little bit? So,
yeah, just a little bit.
Be nice. So I had Alex defending from Esteban.
Mm-hmm.
That was fantastic. The patented Alex defense.
Yeah, just driving, stay in the
like there's been driver manuals, written about Alex's patented defense, but
dastardly defensive driving.
Yes, that unsportsmanlike. Anyway, no, it was a great defending by Alex. Mm-hmm. That was great. Next award is Donkey of the Race. Woo!
We'll do it live.
Did that hiccup for you?
Oh,
good sound.
Yeah, it's hiccuping for me. Yes, I don't know, making me a little nervous actually.
Me too. I'm getting a little anxious.
A little more. It's even more intense at this point.
It is. I don't know what's wrong with my soundboard.
Do it live?
Yeah, I had an update on Zoom, the soundboard, and the audio piece, and one of the drivers isn't working or something. I don't know. So apologies up front. There's nothing I can do to fix it.
Yeah,
that's my point.
Yeah.
So apologies.
I'm just glad your camera's working this time.
Well, yeah, and it wasn't last week with Grace. I mean, we started like 25 minutes late because I couldn't get my damn camera to work.
Oh my God.
Oh, I need to buy some real gear. I need more Patreon supporters so I can afford the gear. Donkey, who'd you have?
I have the Haas team.
Well played. Well played. We're all like...
it's okay to be famous on the TV show, but not okay to be lost in an F1 season.
Yeah, it's okay to write your own autobiography, but it's not okay to be last.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. My donkey's George.
Mm-hmm.
George, can't do that, Chief. Can't do it.
Yeah.
Just, Yeah, the unforced rookie errors, that's got to be gone. And that's
He's
my
no longer a
criticism.
rookie, so there you go.
No, and you're and I's concern about Charles Leclerc.
Mm-hmm.
Too many at this stage.
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
So anyway, I'll give it to George. He missed out on big points. Probably would have harassed both Lewis and Alonso. Who knows what they might have been able to do, split strategy against Alonso, right? May have been able to use George as a tail gunner to get Lewis back around him. Who knows? So anyway.
Was not to be.
Not to be. All right, final words, drive of the race.
Get down.
Get in there, Lewis. You like my bass? You like it?
Yes, Sergio, sometimes. All right. Who'd you have drive the race? Alex, that's who I had.
Alex, you got to, right?
Yeah.
Stunning.
Great
Stunning
race.
drive. Good
Great
for him.
race. Great race. At this point, I'm thinking if Sergio isn't ticking boxes, maybe you give Alex another poke in that Red Bull.
Ooh, but haven't they written him off? They kicked him to
Yeah.
the good. Well, not that Alex would turn down the right of Red Bull if he was asked for it again, right?
Yeah. Thank you, sir. May I have some more? Yeah,
Yes.
I think he would.
Yeah, it would be interesting.
How about that Will Arnett, Daniel Ricciardo show thing? Boy, that got
don't know.
lambasted in the social media.
I haven't seen it at all.
Boy, I'm glad I wasn't.
Did you
part of
watch
that.
it?
No, I saw some clips of it.
Oh,
In defense of them, people were really angry because a race was going on behind them,
yeah.
and they just talked about all kinds of other stuff while
Oh,
the race
really?
was going on. And every once in a while, they go, "Oh, that was a good move," and that was it.
Really? Huh.
Yeah, and it was
Yeah,
like,
I don't know.
whoa. But in fairness to them, they can't show the race. They don't have the license to do that. It's being shown by.
Right. So you're supposed to watch this while you're watching the race?
Yeah, I think that was the thing. And so people were mad because they're all intently watching the race, and these guys over here are talking about who knows what, So yeah,
I gotcha.
Yeah,
Trying to be funny.
more of a conversation while an F1 race rages.
Ooh,
behind
like
you.
the annoying people in front of you on the grandstand
Yes,
while watching the race.
Yes,
Is that what it was?
It's
Okay,
exactly
that's really
like that.
bad.
Yeah,
That's
that
very
was
bad.
Yeah. So anyway, all right.
No more of that, please.
No more. Hey, I did get a last minute mailbag.
You've got mail.
Are you ready for this?
Okay.
Speed Didion asks, so there was a controversy last weekend regarding Leclerc's homage helmet to Gilles Villeneuve. Luckily, I missed out on this hullabaloo, but it has raised some questions. Number one, he said, I wonder, just what is the deal with helmets in today's F1? I feel that there used to be visual identifiers and brands like Senna, Weber, Hunt. I would say David Coulthard, Jackie Stewart, right? Iconic helmets.
Yes.
That was their brand.
Yes.
He said, can you trademark that, by the way? I think you probably could as a logo, as some sort of artwork that's unique to you. I think you probably could trademark that. Today, I think of Hamilton's mini helmet iterations, and it appears to be more advertising space, special editions or commentary. I even seem to remember Vettel coming under fire or under scrutiny for all of his changes.
Right.
So, just what is a driver's relationship with their helmet design? Who is wearing who here? And or are the rules made up and the points don't matter? You happen to have an iconic a nod to James Hunt. That's your helmet.
Right, and Ronnie Peterson actually.
And Ronnie Peterson.
Yeah, and then my latest helmet is bright orange just because I like orange. But I've had deep discussions with one of our drivers, Hannah Grisham, on her helmet because she comes with a plain carbon helmet. I'm like, there's a man called Jackie Stewart who said you have to make sure that everyone, if you're going to be in a car, you have to make sure that everyone knows it's you driving the car, whether it be the name on the side of the car, make a distinctive helmet design, make sure everybody yell at everyone, hey, I'm getting in the car, but make sure everyone knows it's you. So you're noticed for your driving, right? Good or bad, I guess, to that degree.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a big thing about the helmets. I think they're way too complicated. They look cool up close. Most of the helmets do, but from far away, it could be anybody.
See the detail.
Right? That was the beauty of the 70s, early 80s helmets was they were simple, but stood out. You knew Piquet's helmet, you knew Mansell's helmet. And I wish they would go back to that now, especially. But then, things with sponsorships became more and more complicated. Then you just got all the sponsors on the helmets anyway, so you may as well just have the helmet the same color as the car, and then you don't know between the drivers. So yeah, I'm a big proponent of simple, classic helmet designs that are distinctive between drivers. Very much so.
Yeah. And there were so many iconic helmets. Surveyors, was cool. Jackie's is cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, Coulthard's cool. He's Scottish, and there's a Scottish cross on it, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So many cool helmets.
So many in the like after the 80s.
Yeah.
Just
There were a few in the 90s that were all right. I mean, Schumacher had the distinctive red with the blue on the top. Then he changed because Barrichello had blue on top, so he changed his to all red, which became iconic.
Right.
In his own right. But Senna's yellow. Yeah, I agree. It's a good question. So, there's Arai helmets, Bell helmets, Schuberth helmets. Max wears a Schuberth, I think. Does Charles wear an Arai or Bell? I can't remember. Yeah, but there's an interesting story. You know who used to love a good helmet discussion was Peter Windsor.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, all his podcasts in the early days, he's always talking about Arai helmets and helmets. He loved a good helmet talk.
It's definitely a personal thing for a driver. It's very big moment if they change manufacturer.
It is, and those manufacturers all have to be approved, put through crash tests by the FIA, approved before they
right. But if you're a Bell guy, you're usually a Bell guy for life, or a guy or
a Schuberth guy,
or whatever usually. And so it really takes a big movement, or the company's design philosophy changing quite a bit for a driver to look elsewhere.
Yours is a Bell?
Yes.
Yeah. Have you tried a Schuberth?
No, have not.
Okay.
I like to rise. There was, what was the name? BFA I used to like. BFA was, I think Alisi had a BFA way back when. That was my favorite helmet, but then that company stopped making helmets, or stopped altogether, I think. And so, but my first helmet was a Bell. Then I went to BFA and then went back. So
did you ever have the big circle, the big mod logo on your helmet?
No, I didn't. I did have the British flag on there for a while. That was pretty
nice.
Yeah, I've had some wacky helmet designs, but my favorite one was the one that's like the James Hunt, Buddy Peterson, and it ended up looking kind of like a Red Bull helmet before there was a Red Bull helmet.
Yeah,
weird. If you look at it, it's very strange. It's got like the dragon on the side. Yeah. So not the bull. But
not the bull.
No.
No, not the bull.
It's a good helmet though. I liked it. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, that does it for this podcast. That does it for this race review. You let us know what you think about the Canadian Grand Prix. You can do that. Just go to theparcfermé.com. Look for this post. You can go in the comment section and just have at it. Let us know what you think. Just do it with decorum and civility as always. A huge, huge thank you to our Patreon supporters. We could not and would not do this podcast without you. And if you like this podcast, go over and give us a good ratings at iTunes or wherever you listen to the podcast. That would be great. And also, if you really like the podcast, you can go to our website, go halfway down the page. You'll see a t-shirt there with the new logo which Grace demoed last week. And you can pick up a t-shirt there, which would be great and supports the website as well. So until next race, there's next week and then race? Austria, 2 weeks' time.
Okay.
Yeah, then there's the Austrian Grand Prix. The home race of Red Bull should be fun to watch. The gauntlet's been thrown down by Alonso against Hamilton, so that's fun. I know Max is winning a lot and all that stuff, but the real fun is Aston versus Mercedes. That's a lot of fun to watch so far. So
maybe Ferrari can
get back up in there. That would be awesome. Yeah. So, all right. Well, until next week when we do it all over again, this is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Camber, saying so long. Should I say so long? Yes, so long.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.